I'm so excited to be here today. We're going to do the next in a series that we have been doing all along around guided meditation and exercises. And today's is going to be specifically on body attunement. We're going to define what is body attunement, how can we get better at it so that we get healthier, how do we regulate ourselves in a kind of a different way. I've been aware of myself and my body, and I'm one of these people who has a high level of sensitivity to what I experience internally. I know that's not true for everyone. I've met a variety of people who have very different kind of internal experiences, um, but I happen to have a high level. But what I learned as I started to dig into this, that just like there's emotional intelligence and there's intelligence, like IQ, like smarts, there's also body intelligence. So you may be really good at reading the room or knowing what you are doing emotionally. Maybe you even have a lot of computing power with a fantastic memory and you're just really sophisticated, all of that. But it doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't translate over to body awareness, body attunement. I thought that was fascinating. Um, so we're going to talk about what is it. There's actually three levels of a body attunement. There is awareness, your awareness of what's happening inside of your body. There's also knowledge of what that means. Just because you feel something, can you interpret it accurately? Can you make meaning of it, make sense of it? And then what do you do about it? And it's called engagement. Do you use that information in a way that helps you, that builds you up and makes you healthier as a result? Or is it just information that you disregard and you drop? So we're going to explore all of that. And I'm going to first do a little bit of teaching and talking about it. Then we're going to actually do a live guided meditation together, something we've done before, but I'm going to ask you to do it in a little different way today. And then we'll wrap up this live with talking again one more time about what your experience was like, what you took away from it, all those types of things. We're going to talk about that at the end of this. So I know already I'm seeing some questions come in about how to deal with things that are happening in your life, that you're feeling abused or you're experiencing something very traumatic. If there's time at the end, I will try to get back into this and save room for that. If there's time, I'm going to go till 2 o'clock today. So I can't promise, because I really want this to be about a healing experience. So that's going to be our primary focus today. So thank you so much for being here and for joining me on this live. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then we're going to jump into body attunement. What is it? How to get better at it? How good are you? I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a licensed mental health clinician. I have over 20 years of counseling experience. I've been a private practitioner. I've had a private practice for most of my career, and then I retired that practice in 2015. And since recently, I've been more into writing, more into reflecting, and I love to do a lot of education. So I'm super jazzed to be here, because one of the things that, as a narcissistic abuse survivor who, when that relationship ended, and it ended in 2019, I was very dysregulated. I don't think I fully appreciated, because, and let me put it into perspective. The relationship is dying and ending when I got the news that my son had leukemia. So I heard that my son was dying and in intensive care, and I'm flying home. And as I'm flying back from living in another country, I'm realizing my relationship is over. The relationship is finished. So I really went from one crisis to the next. I threw myself in from trying to save this toxic, abusive relationship to then focusing on a super sick son. I mean, he went through 4 rounds of chemotherapy. He had several more intensive, he nearly died several more times. I mean, nobody really describes the inside look at what leukemia is like. He didn't have the type that is curable, although we think that it may be cured. He's now 3.5 years out, so we're praising God for every day he's got here with us, and he's in full remission. And in 2.5 more year or 1.5 more, we can actually use the word cured. But at the time he was diagnosed, it was just recently stumbled across a major transition in treatment for this type of leukemia. Previously, if he had this type of leukemia 10 years earlier, he probably most likely would have been fatal for him. But because there's been this sudden advancement for acute myeloid leukemia, that's what he's got, AML, I mean, sadly, he got diagnosed with it, but the good news was he got diagnosed just when there was this new revolutionary treatment that was being launched, and he was able to take advantage of that, take a part of that. So, yeah, I mean, my life literally went from chaos, stress, abuse to intense fear and anxiety. So that's what I was in the middle of, and yes, I was extremely dysregulated. What I did was I got into group therapy. I did the thing that I knew to do, which is to get support, get into a very tight group of people and meet with them weekly for over a year. I did that for over a year, spent hours every week in this intense experience for my own healing. But what I didn't know was that my regulatory system, my fight or flight system was terribly out of whack. I mean, I knew I wasn't sleeping. I knew food was an issue. I mean, I knew there's a lot of signs that I was keyed up, but I didn't realize the degree that I was suffering and very ill. So when I started looking into this and digging into deep breathing and fight or flight and the sympathetic, the parasympathetic system, and I've known all about this as a psychologist. One of the main groups of people coming in for treatment are people with anxiety disorders. So I've certainly worked with my fair share of people who've struggled with this condition, but I hadn't put it together how critical it is, how useful it is for abuse victims, for narcissistic abuse survivors. So let's talk about what body attunement is. And I know if you've been here previously, you've heard me explain the fight or flight system multiple times. So I don't really want to rehash that unless there's those in the room who don't understand and would like me to revisit it. But what I would like to do is describe body attunement. And I'm going to stop for a second and ask you, please share and like this, because we get into doing a guided experience. You guys all get quiet. TikTok doesn't register that this is a popular experience, and so does Instagram. And so then they just stop pushing it because no one's doing anything. So please like and share this. It really helps get attention to these things. Okay, so let's talk about body attunement. We're gonna, for a moment, leave abuse to the side. We're just gonna talk about body attunement. Every single one of us has a different degree of body BQ. Just like you have an IQ and you have an EQ, you have a BQ, a body quotient. How sophisticated you are when it comes to your sense of self, what you do with it, your ability to know what it means, and your ability to use it and do something constructive with it. So like I said, there are 3 pillars. So the first one is awareness. Are you aware of what's happening inside your body? Now, the problem is with abuse survivors is that when we're being abused, especially when it's sexually or physically, and maybe even emotionally, part of our survival mechanism is to tune out. We literally numb ourselves as a way for preservation. You know, when you're being hurt, the best way to deal with the pain is just to numb the sensation. I don't feel pain. And you actually can get good at that. You can get very good at emotionally numbing out, but you also can get good at physically numbing out. So but to heal, I mean, that's not a good way to live. Let's give you an example why. Let's take leprosy, for example. Leprosy is a damage to the body's ability to have sensation. So when you have no sensation, then you don't know that you've been harmed. You don't know that you may have an infection in your leg. And then you're not going to go get treatment because you're unaware that your leg is in pain and puffy and in trouble. Or say you're out in the desert and you get hit by a snake bites you. If you have no body awareness, you're not going to be aware that you just got potentially poisoned to death. So body awareness is very critical because it's our body's natural way of saying, hey, something's going wrong. We need to stop and take a look at this. It's interesting. So here's my question for you. And I'm probably not going to slow down and read your questions because I really want to create space for doing the exercise. But my question for you to think about is this. Are you listening to your body? And when you feel a pain, are you aware of where the pain is located? And are you aware whether it's at a bone level? Is it a ligament or a tendon? Is it a muscle problem? Is it a skin or kind of like the surface area? Can you tell the differences of the pain that you're experiencing? That's the first level, awareness. And then, okay, so maybe you're good at being aware of your limbs, like maybe you know what's going on with your legs and your arms, maybe you even know a little bit what's going on with your head, but can you tell your internal system? Are you aware that maybe your stomach's upset and know that that's different from kidney pain, which is in the back? Can you tell the difference to where maybe it's more gut or an intestinal pain, or whether it's your heart or your lungs that are bothering you? Can you kind of tell where the pain's occurring? Let me give you, for instance, of how I saw this, because I have a pretty decent awareness. I would say my awareness of my bodily experience is high, is strong. But my late husband, who's diagnosed with duodenal cancer, which is small intestinal cancer. So his cancer was in the intestines just below the stomach. And it was pressing against, there's a nerve bundle there called a iliac nerve bundle. And it was, his tumor was pressing into that nerve bundle. So he had a lot of pain, tremendous. They warned him, you're going to be in a lot of pain, but we're going to work real hard to keep it, work real hard to keep you as pain-free as possible. When you asked him, you know how they love to ask us, okay, what's your pain scale? On a scale of 1 to 10, how high is your pain? Now they mean that pain, like 1 is like nothing. Literally, it's you're normal, you're feeling good. And a 10 should be you think you're dying and literally you can't move, speak, or do anything else. You're in agony. That would be a 10. And so you're supposed to somehow know on this scale what a 1 is and what a 10 is, and then be able to tell what level you're at. When they would ask him for medication, like, do they need to give him another dose of pain meds? He would say, I don't know. I don't know. He would never say. So I learned when he was not sick, he would say, I don't feel good. He'd say, I have a fever. He'd say, I have a fever. Well, I'd touch his forehead or take his temperature. And the guy didn't have a fever. There was no fever. And then he would say, but I have a fever. I feel like I have a fever. And I realized what he was saying was, he says, I don't feel well, but he didn't have the words to say, I don't feel well. He couldn't say, oh, it's my head, or I'm achy, or my throat's scratchy. He didn't have a lot of body awareness. So I learned when he was really ill and needed help with the pain management with cancer, I would say to him, because he never was abusive with medications, not ever. So I would say to him, do you need your meds? And he would say, yeah, I really need my meds. And that would be the best that we could ever get to some measurement. He had no ability to give a measurement like 1 to 10. It didn't work in his case. So how about you? Does that scale measurement work for you? And besides just level of can you walk or speak or are you in agony, do you know the difference between bone pain, muscle pain, ligament pain, gut pain, organ pain? Can you tell the difference between kind of headaches? Do you know a difference between a migraine or a tension headache or maybe muscular headache? Are you aware of those types of things? So that's the first question, and this is called awareness. Awareness. Now, the second part of body attunement or body quotient is knowledge. So this gets tricky. We all think we know our bodies and we all think we know what's best. I mean, how many times have you ever talked to somebody who tells you that they have this problem and then they know the perfect cure and then they tell you what the cure is? Now, maybe they're right. Maybe it's a superstition that's been passed down. Maybe they've got it wrong. I'll be really vulnerably honest with you guys. I self-diagnose all the time. I mean, I have a PhD and I'm licensed to diagnose when it comes to mental health disorders. And somehow I think that should transfer over and I should be able to be good at diagnosing my physical problems, not other people's. I don't do that, but my own physical problems. So sometimes I'll go into the doctor and says, I think I have XYZ. I'll tell you, I'm never right. I'm never right. I mean, just because the internet, all this like symptoms, because I'm not an expert at knowing diseases, and there's lots of diseases, and there's nuances to how diseases present in the body. So my question is, if you are aware, say you have a muscle strain, maybe a thigh strain or something, are you able then to appropriately know what you should do? I mean, do you know how to get the help? Do you go seek medical advice? One of the problems with a lot of abuse victims, particularly if you've been an abuse victim out of childhood, and I experienced a lot of neglect in childhood. I am not good at reporting pain. I'm terrible. I will give you an example. After I was in horrific back pain for years. for years. Finally, I went to a doctor and told them, and he said, "Well, how long has it been going on?" And I said, and I thought of my age of my second son. Oh, he, at the time, 23. And he looked at me, he goes, 23 years? You've been doing this for 23? Yeah, I'm doing this for 23 years. I found out I had, he took an MRI and I had two bulging discs and I had arthritis down there. Like, I'm just like plugging along. So I'm what's called an underreporter. Are you an underreporter? A lot of abuse victims, because our pain has been minimized, because we've been devalued, because we've experienced a lot of gaslighting, we learn to distrust our experience. And then we don't use the awareness to get knowledge. We don't seek help. We don't necessarily do the things we know we do. Or, you should be drinking water. Are you drinking water? You need to eat a healthy diet. Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you consciously making like do you know what a healthy diet is? Like my husband didn't know what a fever was. So he didn't have good awareness, and then he didn't have a knowledge either. So that's pillar number 2. Pillar number 1 is attunement. Awareness. Do you have body awareness? This number 2 is, do you have knowledge? Are you using the knowledge? Do you know how to get diagnosed? Do you believe what you hear when you, okay, so let's very vulnerably, doctors always don't get it right. Sometimes do you trust yourself enough to know that if one doctor gave you bad advice that you need to get a second opinion? Are you good at doing those types of things? Do you seek out? Do you have a sense something's wrong and keep at it till you start to feel better? Okay, so then pillar number 3 is this: engagement. This is when we know what we're supposed to be doing and we don't do it. All right, this is March 2nd. So we all probably made some New Year's resolution about what we're going to do to take better care of ourselves this year. Like maybe you said you're going to walk more. Maybe you said you're going to be drinking more water. Maybe you said you're going to limit your contact with the amount of social media that you're on. Something. You probably made some kind of, I'm going to be healthier plan this year. How many of us are still sticking to it? That's engagement. So that's why you may get an idea that you want to do XYZ differently. And then when it comes to actually doing it, you start to fall off. You start to let it go. One of the things I've discovered, I have this weird congenital disorder where my calf muscles are too short and it causes tremendous feet pain. I found in the part of the feet pain is ligaments. My ligaments get really tight and tender. And I found if I roll out on this ball morning and night, that I walk more, I'm in less pain and I do better. Okay, so I started doing that new habit. Am I doing it consistently this week? I would say maybe 25, 30 to 50%. That's probably where I'm at right now. I'm not as religious as I was the first week or two. I'm kind of falling off. That's what happens with a lot of us with our body attunement, is that we may have good awareness. We may even know what's going to be helpful. And then we start to fall apart at engagement. We don't do well at engagement. So I really want to challenge you all to assess how you can make changes at all of these levels. How can you become better attuned at an awareness level? So let me give you some suggestions. If you experience a pain and you do the right thing and you get help for it, and someone says to you, "Oh, this is the knee. This is the meniscus part of your knee." I want you then to say, "Okay, now I know what that feels like. So when I feel that again, I have that information." Or maybe you've ended up with COVID and you felt that feeling that you had in your chest and everything and how it was different from a cold. You can say to yourself, "Okay, now I know when something settles in my lungs, it feels more like this." Or maybe you strained a muscle and you go into the doctor and they say, "No, actually you broke a bone or you sprained a joint." Then you can say to yourself, "Okay, now I know a difference between a muscle pain and a bone or joint is this." So in other words, build on what you're learning. Take in the information around you and then use that to augment your knowledge about yourself. So that's how you can improve awareness. How we can improve knowledge is this: be open. You may not be the final word, and be really careful where you're pulling your information from. I don't know how many, even with narcissistic abuse, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Do you know that the source that you're getting it from is credible? Do they have education? Are they backing it up with research and sources? Or it's just a theory? Let me give you a for instance. Like, I know right now we're comparing the trauma bond to an addiction, but is there hard research for that? And I'm not saying it's not very, very difficult. It is difficult to break a trauma bond, and it probably does feel like an addiction. But when you have somebody who's kind of like making the claim of that, this big, large, swooping, like use the addiction model to break up trauma bond. Well, is that really credible? And where's their source to getting that from? So do your homework is what I'm suggesting. And get good advice. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with holistic, but also make sure that you seek multiple sources of information. Just make sure to really be savvy when it comes to being your own advocate. I had to do that a lot for my late husband when he was with ill. I had there was doctors I had involved and specialists we had involved, and sometimes even the specialists weren't always the right people. So I made sure I knew who was close and where we're getting the best advice from. To give you an example, how we got bad advice from a specialist is that the oncological thoracic surgeon suggested he had radiation and aggressive chemo. Well, we got the word back when he recovered from surgery that had metastasized and was stage 4, and we got advice from a primary care doctor that this was terminal and that all that we might do was make his last few weeks of life very miserable. So I got more advice. I talked to somebody else and I asked the oncologist, did she agree with the surgeon, or did she agree with the internist? And she said, no, I agree with the internist. You may live a few weeks longer, but it's going to be really bad. It's going to be really rough. So even though it was a thoracic surgeon who told us one piece of advice, it wasn't necessarily the best piece of advice. So make sure that you really get good information from multiple sources that you feel are credible. And then the hard part is stage 3 is the last one, which is engagement. It takes sheer discipline, it takes good strategy. It takes, and be reasonable. One of the reasons we fail when we start something new is because we bite off too much. We say to ourselves, I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water every day. Well, you know what? If you're not even getting 2 glasses of water in a day, getting 8 is going to be really hard work. So you may want to say, I'm going to, like, if I do 2, I'm going to go 2.5, do 2.5 for a few weeks and see how that, and then go to 3 cups a day. In other words, take it in incremental small bites. You've heard of the analogy, how does someone eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's how they do that. That's the same with this. So when you see something kind of that's off and you really want massive change, how you make a massive change is you make incremental, successful, small changes that then eventually add up in a cumulative form to make a large change. That's how I've done most big things in my life. That's how I wrote the book. That's how I finished my dissertation. That's how I've done a lot of very difficult things. Was I took a big goal, broke it into tiny, like survivable bite-sized chunks, and then consistently approached it day after day after day. And before you knew it, you have these big projects. You have, books that are 80 plus thousand words long. Actually, my first draft was 130,000 words long, written. So it's that kind of a process. It's when we get overly ambitious or get impatient. That's another problem. We get impatient that we end up sabotaging and then having nothing happen that we really, really want to have happen. So just remember, tiny, even like, say that, for example, your house, maybe you're struggling with hoarding, okay? And you really like to have your house in a different state. Take one corner on one shelf each day and then incrementally work through the house. Like, it's just like that, just tiny. This is what I say. What can I do in 15 to 30 minutes? That's all I do. I do whatever I can within a day, literally a day, because first of all, I don't want to do it. It's miserable. So if I just say, and if I enjoy doing it, I don't want to stop at the end of it, I can keep going. But if I decide that I don't want to, I stop. I walk away and then I do it again the next time. Just increment. That's the dissertation. Ugh. I mean, who wants to write a dissertation? Seriously. I didn't, but that's how I did it. Incremental bite-sized challenges. Okay, so awareness, knowledge, and engagement are the three things to success. So let's now do a exercise. I'm going to lead you through a guided breath exercise. It's a relaxation technique. It's something you guys can do anytime that you want that feels, if you're feeling tense or worked up. But I want to add an extra piece of homework to this today. Because we're talking about body attunement, I'd like you to, as we become aware of each part of your body, I want you to ask yourself, check in with yourself in a curious, non-judgmental way. What am I feeling there? What sensations come up? What memories come up? Whatever, just pay attention, just be interested, be curious, be playfully curious about this. And then we'll talk about it when we're done. And then if there's time left over, we'll talk about other issues, because I haven't had my glasses on, so I can't read what you guys are writing, because I really wanted to focus on what I had to say. I don't know, doing lives is is a lot of like concentration work, really challenging. So when we get done, if we have time, we'll come back and we'll talk about your issues after we talk about what this experience was like. Okay. I know I'm at a desk, so my setting is not very, very conducive. Maybe your setting's not, but that doesn't mean we can't do this together. So if you're at work or something and it's going to take about 10 minutes, maybe you can close the door. Maybe you can kind of even dim the lights in your office as you can, or if you're home, maybe you can turn on a show for the kids, find a way for you to carve a little space out for yourself. And then you'll be back with it in about 10 minutes. All right. So, okay, get comfortable. And I'm going to take a drink of water here. So get comfortable. I like to, excuse me. I'd like to have you have your back against the back of the chair. So you're kind of leaning back against the chair. Put your hands down on your side, or maybe rest them on the arm of your chair, or rest them on the desk, front desk. And if your eyes want to close, let them close. And now let's take a nice deep breath together. All right, let it out. Let's do another one. You just fill up. You want to feel all your rib cages expand, and then let it out. Nice, let it out. Now we're going to start pacing our breaths. Like inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll hold and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just let your breathing find a nice pace, a nice relaxed pace, a nice slow inhales. You'll pause for a second at the top, and then nice slow exhale. And as you're doing that, you're going to let go of today's stress. What's on your plate today? The tasks that are waiting. You're going to just right now focus on my voice, and you're going to be listening to your breath. Feel your rib cage expand and contract. You may hear some distracting noises, but you're going to focus on this moment, on the peacefulness in this moment, on my voice, and on your breathing. You're feeling relaxed, at peace, and you're feeling safe. You're starting to feel some warm tingling in your fingertips and at the bottom of your toes. And it's growing, and it's moving up into your hands. You feel it starting in the center of your gut, and it's filling you, expanding, and taking space. This is your space. This is a peaceful space. And you're just breathing and exhaling and inhaling and owning and filling this space. You're feeling warm and tingly, and warmer and more warmer. You can feel your back against the chair, your bottom against the bottom of the seat, and your feet firmly on the ground. Your hands are relaxed. Now take your feet, and I want you to curl your feet into a ball as tight as you can. Curl them right up, tight, 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 tight. Curl them up. Feel the strain, nice and tight. Now expand them and drop them. Relax. Just let them go. Notice what you're feeling in your feet, in your toes, your arches, your ankle. Note it with curiosity. What's it feeling like today? Is there tenderness or tension? Are you feeling any distress or pain? And make a mental note of it to revisit it later. Now, I want you to pull your feet up and tighten the front of your legs. Tighten your shins area. Stretch your back of your calves and pull them hard, tight up, 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 to pull them tight. Now drop it and feel the relief flood into those front muscles of your shin area. How does your shin and calves feel? What are you feeling in the back of your calves, where it connects to your knee and connects to your ankle? Anything that you want to make note of that's different or feels not quite you. Now I want you to tighten your thighs, nice and tight. Really tighten your quads, really tight. Strain them. I want tight, tight. And then relax. Feel the warmth flood into those muscles with the relaxation. Are they tender? Is there any tension around your kneecap or near your hips? Maybe something in the back of your quads or hamstrings. Make a mental note of it to come back to later to explore. All right, now to tighten your glutes. Let's tighten them up. Ball them right up on your chair. Tight, tight, tight. Real tight. Okay, release. Release. Just let that go. What's the sensations you have with that area? What thoughts or feelings does it evoke? Are you comfortable with this area? Or does it feel like foreign space to you? Now I want you to clench your stomach, really to clench it, like you're getting ready for someone to punch you. Make it as tight as you can. Really clench it tight, tight, tight. And relax. Feel it nice and open and relaxed. What's that feel like? How's your gut feel? Is there heaviness in it? Any twinges, anything off or uncomfortable? Now I want you to tighten your shoulders up, really tight to your head, right up tight to your neck. Tight, tight, tight. Draw them right up next to your neck. Really tight. And drop. Let them drop right down. You notice that you drop them back and down and get them nice and relaxed. How are your shoulders feeling? Are they heavy? Have they been tense? Are you feeling any pain there? Now I want you to ball up your fist and your wrist and forearms, just tight, like you're going to want to haul off on somebody. Just really tight, tight, tight. And then release. How does your joints feel in your fingers, in your palms? How does your forearms feel? Is there anything that you're noticing there that's unusual? Now we're going to tighten our face. I want you, no one's looking, you're by yourself. I can't see you. I want you to tighten your face. I want to grimace it really hard. Tight, tight, tight. And then relax. What are you sensing in your face? The back of your neck. Take another deep breath in and hold it and let it out. Let's breathe again. Hold it and exhale. Just notice how you're feeling right now, this place. Feel yourself lean heavily against your back, against the back of your seat. Your bottom heavily on the bottom of the chair, and your feet heavily on the floor. I want you to enjoy this space, this safety. This is yours. This calmness, this peace, this is yours. Okay, we're going to take another deep breath. Hold it and exhale. And we're going to start to move our fingers and toes. We're going to start to open our eyes if we had them shut. We're going to maybe roll our shoulders and start to come back and become aware. And let's talk about this. I know you're still coming to, but I'd love to know what you thought and how this was today. And how did you feel doing this? What was comfortable? What was not comfortable? Did you learn something about yourself? Or maybe there's something about body attunement. If you caught the first part of this today, we talked about awareness, knowledge, and engagement of body quotient. How intelligent are you with your body awareness? Maybe there's something you didn't understand, or maybe you found really confusing, or maybe it really shocked you and puzzled you. I'd love to hear more about this. Fierce Girl, I'm glad that it's helpful. Thank you for being here with me and doing this with me. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, so you were feeling some tension in your body. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah, so Brittany, you were feeling really kind of super activated, and now you're starting to feel better. It is. Oh, isn't it user 3220? Isn't that interesting how it can be very cleansing, that we don't realize that we're holding on to so much, and it can be extremely cleansing to let some of this out. Exactly. Very, very healing. Very healing. Yeah. Athena, I see your request to join. I don't accept spontaneous requests to lives, but I appreciate your desire to do that with me today. Thank you so much. Which kind of reminds me, I'm launching a new group experience effective in a month. It'll be April 3rd, and we will do these actively in this group. It's going to be a one live a week with this group, where video, so that you could be live with me and we could be talking. Will also be group support. You also have access to other benefits inside of it. If you're interested in learning more about this upcoming group, it's going to be 2 tiers. Please make sure that you check out the first link. Check out the link in my bio. And I'm super excited about it, because the energy that I've been devoting towards just general public, I'm going to kind of remove half of that energy and push it all into this group. I'm going to really devote a lot of myself to this group. So I'm very, very excited about it. So if you found this helpful, Fierce Girl, this may be something that's really in line with that. Yeah. So Garth, what did you discover as you were doing that, as you kind of tensed and released the different muscles? What kind of things did you discover? And yeah, Brittany, it is. I mean, yeah, isn't it amazing how we can go from 100, yet this simple exercise is very, very recalibrating. It really helps us move from a intense or tight space or upset space into a relaxed space. It is very wild how that happens. Make sure you guys are liking and sharing this. I know I've seen a lot of you share this. I appreciate that. That helps. It helps get a little more activity here. That's the problem with doing an exercise, is that it goes quiet, and then the platform thinks there's no activity because we're all being quiet. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. So Garth, what do you think that meant when you felt the tension? So third bird daddy, yeah, you were stuck in a fight or flight about 2.5 years. It does cause a lot of physical pain, like cramping in arms and legs. I agree. Oh, you're right. It can really scare us. Hey, so good to see you from New Zealand, Zenith Warrior. I love watching that show. I had a lot of fun with that show. I'm glad you're feeling better, user. I'm glad that it really helped. So what I did with you today is called a relaxation technique. And this has been recorded today, so you can go back and replay it when you want to. So it's available. I do intend to make a series of these and record them for the benefit of my group. So if you become a group member, that will be something that it will just be recordings of the guided meditations. So then you can go and say, oh, I really need a guided meditation for relaxation today. Or no, I really need a guided relaxation to help release pain. Or maybe you're going to say, oh, today I really need relaxation around working with my inner child, or having a different, creating a safe space. And a lot of us struggle with finding a safe space. So that will be something that's going to be available to this new group. And if you'd like to learn more about it, please check out the link in my bio to learn more. And like I said, that's going to go live on April 3rd. I'm super, super excited about it. Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome. I'm glad it's helpful. Anything else that you did anything about body attunement and body quotient not make sense? Any questions about that you'd like me to go into a little bit more? And if not, we have about 15 minutes left, and I'd be happy to take anybody's just general questions. We'll move it away from the experience to we'll move it more specifically into this topics, or we'll move it into whatever topic you'd like to deal with. Yeah, free user, it's really easy to get into a frozen mode. I would say in that toxic relationship, I was froze as well. Very, very, to the point that I couldn't even speak. I would have selective mutism. Something would happen and the level of danger was so high that I literally would just not talk. I wouldn't be able to speak for more than a day about the issue, and not much at all. I wouldn't speak much at all. So Garth, you have a runner's knee, and Kat, oh yeah, it took a strike. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. So Zena, it's okay now to start asking questions in general about trauma, narcissistic abuse, narcissistic trauma, narcissistic relationships, narcissists in general. If you want us, we're going to open it up and start talking about that in general. So Wisco Mind wants to know, how do you begin to trust yourself and your decisions after a narcissistic abusive relationship? Oh man, I am right there with you. It is hard work. I had a long conversation. I don't know if you guys follow Ro of Roller Coaster in Love. Her and I are really close friends. And we were talking this morning about that very topic, about how it is to try to grow and move back into having relationships and do it healthily. It's slow work. I know there's kind of this mindset out there that I want to dispel. I do think it's important to take time, stop, assess yourself, and not be afraid of being alone. And yeah, that maybe we know each, nitty gritty. Maybe that's how you know me, is through Ro, because Ro and we're good friends and we're close. She comes to Mexico with me, so we have our next trip planned already. In fact, anyway, so so a lot of people say you shouldn't be in a relationship until you've healed. Well, that's it. We're a social species. You're not going to not be in a relationship. You're in friendships. You have family relationships. You're in relationships all the time. So that's not feasible. But it may mean that you take a pause on romantic relationships until you sort of sort out what happened. You make sense of the pain that you experience, and you also make sense of maybe the things that you were afraid to deal with, or that stirs up, or the unresolved things in yourself. It's important to know what that is. I know for me, I had to get over the fear of being alone, because I literally, from college, I met my late husband, was right into a marriage, was married to him, and then was barely a year out, and I met my next husband. I just didn't want to be alone. So for me, part of my healing work is to know that being on my own, being myself, that I'm more than capable. So that's took that healing part. But once you get past that, then I think it's a process of you taking chances and really learn to listen to yourself, learn to identify where it is that you were blind before, what fears you had, learn how to protect your boundaries in a different way, and learn that trust really has to be earned. It doesn't just get given automatically, and learn that yourself, you as a person, is completely developed. It's you. That you don't need a relationship to finish developing you. And the areas that feel under folk developed, I keep using that word and I don't like that I kept using the word, but the areas that feel like not fully there, that do the work on how to become more fulfilled there, feel more complete, more whole there. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it is really about staying present and being mindful, and looking for ways to be authentically yourself, and taking the risks, even when it means rejection with the other person, realizing that you're more important. You honoring yourself, you respecting yourself is more important. That's the hard work in this. Xena Warrior says, a narcissist has been gone 2 months. It's still painful. He moved 2 weeks on, 2 weeks after the split. Tips on how to not to feel pain and ruminate. It's hard to function. It's hard not to think about it. Yeah, absolutely. That's super common, Xena. That's super, super common. So you have to approach the beginning. That's what I found. I found like it really helped for me to approach the beginning much the same way that people who have OCD need. So what I would urge you to do is use stop technique and distraction. So I'm going to spend just a few moments and teach you how to do it. So any of you who are ruminating right now, this is how you stop ruminating. And it's the same technique that you do with obsessions and with anxiety, like phobias. You do this like with an intense fear, like a mental intense fear. I'm not saying literally like a fear to get on an airplane or fear to get on an elevator. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying for people who are like, oh, I'm really afraid of blah, blah, blah. This, you'd use the same technique. Or I really find myself thinking about this and I feel super bad. You'd use the same technique. It's good for all of this. And this is what it is. I want you to create a list of activities that take both attention and concentration. What are these things? Well, it's anything that you lose track of time. So maybe it is, I can give you one. I can give you a couple actually. So add these two things to your list. One is count backwards by 7 from 1,000. I promise. You won't be thinking about anything else as you count backwards from 7 from 1,000. It's going to take work. You'll find the rhythm eventually, but initially it's going to take work. So can you be thinking about your toxic ex while you're counting backwards by 7 from 1,000? No. It crowds out all the other thinking. So math is always a good thing. If you're very strong at math, make it harder. Make it figure the multiples to the number of 100. They're 1, 2, see what I'm saying? 4, it's not 3, but 5, sit and work on all the multiples of 100 or something like that. So that's one task you can add to your list. But pay attention to other things like, does watching TV or a certain show help? Does memorization of something help? Is there a friend who stays off topic of that topic and talks about other things really funny? Maybe learning the lyrics to a word, one of your favorite songs. But find things that create no mental space for you to think anything else but whatever it is that you're thinking about. It has to be that big of a activity. So when you catch yourself thinking about this person, I want you to recognize you're thinking about them. And I want you to say, stop, say in your head, stop. And then I want you to do the other activity immediately. 1,993, 980. See, I'd have to think 86. See, that's what I mean. That's what you do. You catch yourself thinking, you say stop, and you replace it. You may need to do this 1,000 times that first day or that first week, a lot. And it doesn't matter. Do no judgment for this. No judgment. What you're doing is you're training yourself to move into a different way of thinking. And by this process, you are now giving yourself mental space from the person, from the obsessive thinking that leads to nowhere and just keeps you all worked up and upset. And on top of it, you're literally teaching new patterns and you're giving yourself a rest because now you're not so worked up. So yeah, that's how you do it. It's called a stop and distract technique. Stop and distract technique works for lots of stuff. I had a client years ago who was I have a specialty in postpartum depression. And I had a client that I saw, she was actually a nurse. She had a baby and she had an obsessive thought that she was a bad mom. And she scared me. I was concerned for her safety because she was beating herself up so much. She was filled with so much guilt and remorse and felt so ashamed. She was losing weight. She wasn't sleeping. She looked haggard. I mean, the woman she just had a baby and she looked like somebody who was starving. That's how I was very alarmed for her health. She used this technique and came back in 2 weeks. I didn't recognize her. Her face had filled out. Her weight was stabilizing. She was sleeping better and she was able to hold the baby. It's massive change. So it works. I want to tell you it, but here's where people fall apart on it. It doesn't work either because they don't recognize faster that they're thinking about whatever it is that they don't want to be thinking about. They often get into this mindset of, oh, I can fix whatever I'm thinking about. I can fix it. This time I'll find an answer that I didn't have before. Like let's use the narcissistic person. Let's say, oh, this time thinking about her or him, I'm going to figure out why they did this or didn't do this or what was wrong with me. But no, you're not. It didn't work then. It's not going to, why? What's different? So you spend too much time entertaining those thoughts, and those thoughts make you sicker, make you feel worse. That's one place people fail on this. And the second place people fail on this is that they don't consistently apply the distraction. They end up thinking, well, I'll just stop thinking about it and then that'll be enough. No, you need to distract. You really need to distract. And if there's leakage, if you're allowed to think about other things while you're doing whatever it is, then just cross it off the list. It means it's not a good tool, and work to find another tool. Notice things that make you lose time. Then you notice you found something that takes both attention and concentration. Yeah, I'm glad, Brittany, that this is helpful to you. Yeah, CBT, similar, I'm kind of tapping in a little bit of edge of CBT. I don't know. I wasn't trained in CBT, so I don't really think that way, but yeah, it's a little bit of that. Exactly. Yeah, and I love Three Bird Daddy, that you used a song that you really wanted to hear that really helped you to do that. Yeah, Zena, does it make sense? Is that something you think you could do? I would love you to try it and see. And here's the other thing. And all of us who've been at the stage where you're breaking a trauma bond is what you're doing. And you're also trying to still work on the cognitive dissonance, figuring out what's real and what's not real. You might want to check out my course that's designed to help you with the mental piece of this, so that you can actually figure out what is why you care, why it's bothering you so much. So it's not so much, it will give you clarity. It will help you to figure out the truth. Yes, it does that. But also the other way that it really helps, the course helps, is it helps you figure out why you're spending so much time on it, why this matters to you. So it's called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. I know you've already left him, but if you're still mentally not left him, you may find it super helpful to use First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. Yeah. So rumination can be when we're trying to avoid uncomfortable feelings in other areas. Absolutely. Rumination is not limited to narcissistic abuse. It's actually anytime that it may be like you performed badly at school and you want to figure out why, or maybe you feel like you're not doing as well as your friends and you feel really uncomfortable and embarrassed about that. Again, we can get into kind of perseverating and ruminating on it. Like, what's wrong with me? How come I never do good? And then by the over focus on stuff, we often then end up it becomes self-fulfilling, unfortunately. It becomes true, because we then sort of behave that way. That's what's so tough about these practices, is that we end up, we say, I want people to like us, and then we get so stiff and scared, then we aren't very easy to be around. So then people find us awkward, and then they avoid us because they don't know what to do with us. And then we think nobody likes us. Well, no, it's not that. It's just that you're a little awkward and they don't know what to do with the awkwardness. So it becomes sort of self-fulfilling, unfortunately. Yeah, you have a sore heart and upset. I know. One of the things that happens, Zena, is that part of the process after this whole thing blows up on us is that we fell in love with somebody that we thought existed. And that's, again, part of what you'll discover with this cognitive dissonance course. We get into this, why it's so deceptive and why it's so confusing. You met somebody that was amazing. The problem is that person didn't exist. But one of the things that helped me was that I had already lost a marriage. I already had grieved a partner. And I knew what grief was like. I was familiar with grief. So when I felt it, when I was breaking the trauma bond with the second guy, I said to myself, he died. The person I thought I met never existed. He died. And that hurts. I loved that person. I really wanted that person in my life. But the truth was, that wasn't really him. The person I now know my ex-partner to be, I would never have chosen. Not ever. Never. Ugh, no, thank you. He wasn't, his lifestyle, his values, what he was looking for. No, it didn't align with me at all. The person he pretended to be, yeah, that person did, but that person doesn't exist, never did. So that helped me a lot. Kind of viewing this as grief work helped me a lot. Any other questions that you have? That was a great question. I appreciate you offering that up today and sharing that with us, this group. Thank you for that. I haven't picked the topic for the live on Tuesday. I will continue to go live twice a week all the way through March. So coming April is when I'm going to shift and then go live with my group, my new membership, in April 3rd. But I will continue to go live twice a week. And Tuesdays, just for those of you who are not familiar with my platform, Tuesdays are the days where I take on some topic. This last Tuesday, I took on what's the difference between male and female narcissists. The week before that, I talked about what's the difference between antisocial personality and narcissistic personalities. How are they like? How are they different? So I will take something kind of like the Tuesday before that, I think I talked about generational parenting and why there's struggle with respect around that. So every Tuesday, I tend to like to have a theme. So what theme? I'm going to offer it up to who's here. This is a small, intimate group. What themes would you guys like us to talk about on next Tuesday? Is there something you really had hoped that I would get into? And yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, MS. I didn't see your comments, but I forgot to put them on as all live chats. So MSI, I'm sorry, I missed all that feedback that you gave. Yeah, so Brittany said she'd love us to talk about living with autism and narcissism. The autism and narcissism. How are they different? Also, I'm autistic, by the way. I don't know if you guys all know that, but and my children, all my sons are autistic. So we ain't none of them are narcissistic. I'm not narcissistic, but I know there's narcissistic and autistic people. And I also know there's autistic people who are not narcissists and narcissists who are not autistic. But here's the other thing. Autistic people are vulnerable to narcissistic relationships. It makes we're a little more yeah, we're a little more vulnerable. It's been documented we're more vulnerable to trauma, vulnerable to abuse. But that's a very specialized focus. So I'm still looking for other topics. Dealing with fear. Can you say, user, a little bit more what you mean? Hi, Rebecca. I'm so good to see you. Fear from what? Fear of like facing your life, fear of healing. So Zena, you're like discovering yourself again after narcissistic abuse or abusive relationship. That's a good topic too. I like that topic. Yeah. So Shelly, you're also autistic. Yeah, isn't it? When did you find out, Shelly, that you were? Did you always know? I'm a late diagnosed woman. I know people look at, well, you can't see my hands. I'm stimming my hands right now. I always do that during lives. I twist them and play with them and all sorts of stuff. But yeah. You found out at 40. Yeah, I was 57 when I found out. It explained so many. I would like to, did so many things like fall into place for you? Like, wow. I know somebody right now who's discovering that she's autistic and ADHD. And that's like really like a lot's being falling into place for her too. So Zane, struggle of an autistic person expressing yeah, it's hard. Yeah, yeah. So if there's enough energy around autism and narcissism, I have no problem taking that on. That would be interesting. Very interesting. I'll tell you what scares me. I'm going to be super vulnerable. There's like 30 of us here, so I'm going to be super vulnerable. Autism, people with autistic people, because we're first identifying we are autistic. I am an autistic person. I don't have it. It's who I am. We're very literal, and yeah, Zena, I'm 60. I'm gonna be 61. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But we're very literal, and sometimes our literalness makes us concrete thinkers, and it also can make us antagonistic, which is why we sometimes look narcissistic. We can be a little blunt, and we sometimes we struggle with social cues, so we sometimes lack tact, which then means we can be a little abusive in the way we treat people. So I've found sometimes this community is cruel and hard, and that's why I tend to kind of move away from it. Is because I don't like it. I don't like I'm not good. I don't hold up well when I have a lot of attack coming at me. That's why I typically kind of like stay away, because when I see something, ooh, this is going to be controversial. I don't mind some controversy, but I just don't like, they're always like, for sure they're right. They know, maybe they're right for themselves, but anyway, but I don't mind. I can take that on. Yeah, how to stop attracting narcissists. Yeah. Okay, so there is a theme. This is what I'm hearing the theme to be. And this is what we'll talk about on Tuesday. The theme is, how do we reduce our vulnerability so that we're not so attractive to narcissists? Whether the vulnerability is our neurodivergence or our vulnerability is our personality type, because we're very cooperative people and very agreeable and very conscientious, and we have a high moral code. But something about us or who we are makes us vulnerable to people who are more toxic. So how can we reduce that vulnerability? How do we spot them better? So what do you guys think? Does that sound like a good topic for Tuesday? You like thumbs up with me? If so, I'll prepare for it and get ready for it. And you'll see me start to promote it in a couple places. Yeah, yeah, because I want to be inclusive. I want to include everybody, not just target a single. I want to because we get into these relationships because something about us is they see us. I talked to Sandra Brown. One of the things we asked her, what can you do to reduce our vulnerability? And she said, I don't remember if she said this privately to the panelists in that webinar, if she said it to the whole audience, but she said, guys, they're going to always see you. You walk into the room and they're going to spot you. There's just something about you is different, and they are very good at recognizing your vulnerability. So we've got to get better at reducing our risk of being vulnerable, because we are who we are and we're not going to really change that, but we can change our openness. We can kind of view things a little differently so that we're not quite so, naive, maybe gullible, which I'll own that. That's true about me. Very true. Before I met this guy, I was very vulnerable, very, very gullible. All right. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for me on this. Next week, we're going to be talking about, let me check. I always fail to get ready for that. And so I don't know. And then I feel stupid when what is it going to be? But I can tell you here just in a second here. I think it's on emotions. We're going to be talking about emotional attunement, which I have personally been super excited and ready for. Yeah, it's mindful awareness of feelings. So next Thursday is going to be mindful awareness of feelings. And then the last Thursday is going to be tapping. We're going to be talking about soothing. So next Thursday is mindful awareness of feelings. And then the following Thursday is going to be, the following will be in 2 weeks after that, because I'll be out of town in 2 weeks, I'll be out of town. And then the third week of March will be tapping technique. And that will be March 23rd. So March 9th is feelings. March 23rd is tapping and soothing. And be sure, you guys, like I said, check out the course if you think that might be helpful. Also, I have a new membership I'm rolling out. So if you like this kind of experience that we had near the end, when it's more intimate, and imagine you get to see me. We can actually look at each other and talk to each other. Please make sure that check out my membership. It's going to be amazing. You have direct contact with a narcissist, direct contact with a psychologist, as well as support from a community and all sorts of stuff that's going to happen in this group. I'm very, very excited about launching it. All right. Have a good weekend, guys. It's Thursday. So have a really good weekend. And I will see you back on Tuesday when we're going to talk about vulnerability and reducing our vulnerability to narcissists. All right, you guys, you rock. I love you all so much. Bye-bye.